Basics of story weaving for beginners. Story weaving simply means making up your own story. To weave a story, put on your thinking cap and come up with words to express ideas. In this video, we look at what helps us to make better stories. To begin with, if we think deeper, we realize there are stories everywhere around us. Even when we sit for family dinner and talk about our day, we are essentially telling a story. So let us examine what are the reasons that a story becomes a good story. Every good story is structured with beginning, middle, end. This is called story sequence. Let's dig deeper to know each of these. We'll first look at what we generally find in the beginning of the story. The beginning is the start of the story. This is where we get to know who the story is about. People, animals, birds, aliens, or even things could be central characters in the story. In the beginning, we also come to know where and when the story events take place. Knowing place and time of the story helps in visualizing the story. This is called setting of the story. Events begin to develop in the beginning that gives us a fair idea of the plot. Now we look at what we generally find in the middle of the story. In the middle of the story lies the drama. This is where we get to know in detail about what are the actions of the characters, how challenges or problems develop in the story, why the characters have problems or challenges. That means, in the middle of the story, the plot of the story develops and reaches an interesting turning point. At this point, the reader is engaged in the story events and wants to read further how the problems are resolved. Now we look at what lies in the end of the story. The end is the last part of the story. The end part shows how the characters in the story resolve the conflict and the problem is solved. End of the story involves actions, attitude, events, and struggles that help in resolving the problem. Events in the plot begin to develop in the beginning of the story itself. Problems peak towards the middle of the story, and in the end, the problem is resolved. So by now, we know the basic structure of story or story sequence, that is beginning, middle, and end. We also know about story elements, which are characters, setting, problem, solution. A graphic representation of story sequence along with story elements is a story map. Using a story map improves comprehension and helps to organize information and ideas efficiently. After reading your story, if you were to summarize what you read, you would have to tell key information such as characters, setting, and main events from the beginning, middle, and end. For this, we would have to take help of 5 W's and 1 H question words. These are who, where, when, what, why, how.